Hey, Frugal friends, we have a live Sip and Learn coming up on October 17th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Grab your beverage of choice and join us as we share our debt payoff stories, successes, and mistakes, as well as 3 secrets to paying off debt faster that aren't widely talked about. Spots are free but limited, so head to frugalfriendspodcast.com/training to grab yours. Episode 181, How to Identify and Improve Spending Habits.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends Podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends Podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And today we are talking about spending habits, focusing specifically on the habit formation part. We so often like to focus on the spending part, but not the psychological triggers and background for why you spend. So that is what we are specifically focusing on today.
We've got to understand what's behind our behaviors if we want to shift our behaviors. So yeah, habits is a great place to start.
Absolutely. But first, today's sponsors.
Our first live training sponsor in this show, 3 secrets to pay off debt faster, even over the holidays. Yes, it can be done. We will be covering the 3 lessons it took us years and tens of thousands of dollars of debt paid off to learn, all in hopes of saving you some time and heartache on your debt-free journey. And if you're not paying off debt, maybe you're saving for something like your emergency fund or a home, these tips will still be relevant for you. So we're doing that live Sunday, October 17th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And everyone who wants to join us live will get a free copy of our debt-free Christmas planner. Seats are limited, so head to frugalfriendspodcast.com/training. Grab your spot. By the way, it's free.
Yes.
Free to join the live training, free to get the debt-free Christmas planner. Just so much goodies we just want to give to you all because that's what we like doing.
And even if you can't join us live, we will send out a replay, so still head to frugalfriendspodcast.com/training and grab a seat so that you can get that replay. But please show up live and we'll give you that debt-free Christmas planner as a thank you. Today's episode is also brought to you by your brain. Have you ever heard that you only use 10% of your brain? That's crazy because that's a total myth.
It sounds crazy, it is crazy.
Your brain wants you to know that according to science, that is more recent than 1907 when that myth was created, that you actually use nearly 100% of your brain by the end of the day. So your brain wants you to give it a break once in a while, okay? And let habits take over. Your brain, it is working for you.
It is nuts. Even when you were talking about this sponsor, we both were like, how much of our brains do we use? We're like 30%, 40%. You're like, I think even less.
It's changed. Oh. That sponsor changed in the last 30 seconds because I was reading multiple articles that said the 10% thing is a myth. And I was like, oh my goodness, people need to know about this.
There's so much less shame then attached to it because before it's like you only use 30%. So do better, work harder, try and use more of your brain. And it's like, you're using all of your brain.
You're never going to be Neo. So forget the blue and red pill. You're already there. You're fine. Give yourself some grace. Anyways, speaking of grace, habits, am I right? Hard to build, hard to break.
Hard to build, hard to break. Yes.
So that's what we're talking about today, specifically on spending habits, because we like to talk about all things that can be used to improve your life, but we put a financial spin on it because that's our zone of genius. And we are talking, we have a few different websites, and this is the next challenge that we're doing in Club BFF is a 45-day habit challenge. And by the end, you're going to see why we chose this challenge to do after the core values challenge and why specifically it is a 45-day challenge versus a 21 or 66 or whatever. So I am super excited to dive into this. And you have, Jill, like, I feel like this is your zone of genius as well.
I love it when we can blend mental health, behavioral health with financial health because they all do go together. They're never separate. We just don't always connect the dots. So yes, this is definitely up my alley to be able to talk about some of the reasons behind why we behave in the way we behave, how we interact with the world around us, and then how we can utilize our understanding of these topics to help us towards our financial goals.
Yeah, so our first article is from Money Habitudes, and it's basically understanding your money habits. What do you think of this one, Jill?
It's a good one. It's short and sweet. I will say there's a couple of things in here that I'm going to push back on a little bit, which is always fun for me, spicing it up. Overall, it's got some great content. There's just a couple of things I'm going to highlight about what they say and share just a bit of a differing opinion on that. But in general, some great stuff here just about patterns and habits, how they relate to spending, a little bit about how we can shift that, although that's going to come more in the second article.
Yeah.
So the first thing on this article, we're just going to kind of go through. It's not a list. There's not tips, but they do talk about what are spending habits, what are some examples, how do these habits form. So we're just going to kind of go through those aspects. And so the way that they describe spending habits is an acquired behavior pattern that can seem almost involuntary, where these things that we do somewhat without even thinking about it. I wouldn't push back on that. I think that's a decent definition of a habit, although I think that there's this underlying tone of the article that seems to indicate that habits are bad. And I just want to say habits are neutral. Habits we can have unhealthy, unbeneficial habits, and we can have awesome, excellent habits. The goal is to use our propensity towards habituating something in a beneficial way for us. We want to use it to our advantage, but there's no reality where we're just going to get rid of habits. It's how we interact with the world around us. So I think a lot of what they seem to say seems to indicate like all of your spending habits are bad. And I just want to say, no, they're not. We want to identify which ones are not helpful for us and shift them. But yeah.
Yeah. I liked this like definition. I think we have impulse spending and then we have habitual impulse spending, which veers off from impulse spending and just becomes that habitual mindless spending. And I think one of the examples I've used frequently in my life is that when I would leave I think it was either weekend job or I would leave somewhere and I would go past a Chipotle and I would always find myself in line in Chipotle and not even realize how I got there. It was just like it was a habit because of that preceding event. So that's when these things become mindless. That's when we need to step back, and sometimes it's helpful to do like a 7-day no spend challenge so you can kind of step back and see what are my habits? What are the things that I'm doing I'm not even aware of? What are the things I think I need, but I actually don't? And become aware of these habits so that you can improve them. Again, habits are neutral. You could love and appreciate your Chipotle habit and it works in your life because, you make $1 million a year. So then Chipotle is like, whatever.
Chipotle is you saving money.
Right. So I didn't, and I do not. And so it was something I wanted to improve. So again, yes, let's reiterate, habits are neutral, but some get us to our goals faster than others. So there is no guilt or shame in any spending habit.
So they give further definition and highlight that a habit is usually occurs when you have a given set of similar conditions or circumstances and you act similarly each time. So again, it's this pattern, cycle, habitual nature. And where I will push back again on this article is with the examples that they give. Some of these writers are not great with examples, but that's all right. They out here hustling.
Yeah, they use extreme examples because it's easier to like not argue with them. Like they don't want to get bashed in the comment section.
Well, here I am about to push back. Saying that, it's a habit if you always give to charity at the end of the year, or you have a habit of spending on a souvenir t-shirt on a vacation. And I would say that's not a habit. That's not a regular pattern.
No.
That's a ritual or a tradition. If you're only doing something one time a year, sorry, money habitudes. This is not a habit. That's a ritual or a tradition that you have. Habits are these regularly occurring, given a certain set of circumstance, you act in a similar way, almost without thinking. It's like muscle memory. So that's what we're talking about, not your charity giving one time a year.
They also says you always wait until the last minute to buy a plane ticket. That's a personality defect.
yeah. So none of their examples are good. Hate to say it, but
yeah,
how they're describing this, I would agree with.
I think you can. And so this comes from James Clear, who's actually the author of the next article, spoiler alert. But there are several specific things that precede a habit. And so this can be a time of day. This can be a location, a preceding event, like mine was with the Chipotle. It was leaving a place of work. It can be an emotional state, and that can be emotional, positive or negative. Or it can be a person. So like whenever I go see a family member I don't like, I have to, psych myself up with a Starbucks on the way or something.
So if I see you showing up to my house in Starbucks, I know she really had to ramp herself up for this.
That is an example that is not real for me. But, so these are the things that you are doing constantly that have kind of like one of these cues. That's how you can tell that it's a habit.
Right. And so we also then would look at, well, how do these habits form? And you've touched on that a bit, Jen, the different types of circumstances that would lead to the formation of a habit, something that's ingrained in us, why we continue to operate in these patterns. And there's a concept within the field of social work that I feel like is helpful in what this article is also touching on. Classic foundational social work 101 is person in environment. It's also PIE for short. So that's fun because we like food. But this idea that we are directly connected and linked to the context in which we are living and where we're from. So person and environment, what is around us, who's around us, what's the context in which we're living. This is going to play a strong role in the people that we are, but absolutely into the behaviors that we've established, the habits and patterns that we operate within. And so if we want to look at how did these habits form, we absolutely have to look at, well, what's my environment? Where am I? What's the context in which I'm living? Who are the people around me? What is the actual location in which I'm living? What does my certain cultural location, geographical context teach me about what I need, what's necessary, what I should be engaging in? How does that play into my own wants and desires? Are they actually my wants and desires, right? There's a whole digging process here, but essentially we can't separate ourselves from our environment. So the people around us, culture and society, even our religion or spiritual beliefs, our own unique personalities, because it's the nature versus nurture topic as well, the media, and again, friend groups. So these are the influences that bear upon habit formation.
Absolutely. I think community has a huge role to play in how we spend habitually. It's the people you spend the most time around that you pick up on their mannerisms and habits. So that can be at work or out of work. I think that was a big reason how I developed a lot of my spending habits. But yeah, and I loved when in Club BFF right now, we're going through the Core Values Challenge. We're finishing it up. And in the book that we're reading for the book club with it, kind of learning how some core values can be developed out of lack. Like if you didn't have something or you lacked something growing up, that can cause that in adulthood to be a core value for you. And I think the same can be said for habits as well. I think if you lacked something growing up, or even feel like you lack something in your adult life that others have, I feel like that can create a compensation habit as well. I've seen that in my life too.
Yeah, and we build upon our experiences. As much as I don't want to harp too much on childhood, that is part of this, that we probably carry with us some habits and behavior patterns that we established in childhood. And that's why this article talks about, why is it so hard to break spending habits? And they use this illustration of water like weaving a river through rock, and it would take a catastrophic event to shift the trajectory of that water. Like they're going to take the path, water takes the path of least resistance, and it carves its way in that manner. And similar to water carving its way through rock and desert are our patterns, that sometimes these can become so deeply ingrained and entrenched in us and have been our habits and patterns over years, if not decades. And so it is very difficult, similarly to that, since it's relatively involuntary, built in. We're not always thinking about it. It's going to take a lot of effort and intentionality and understanding of ourselves to be able to shift the trajectory of that water, because we want to take the path of least resistance.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like we, by the end of the day, have used almost 100% of our brain capacity. So we are dealing with decision fatigue and just overall physical exhaustion. And so that's why most of our day is made up of our habits. There are habit writers who say you are your habits, which I don't think I would go that far, but you spend a significant amount of your time. If you take a week and you record everything you do every day for a week, you're going to see a lot of patterns, and you're going to have to record every hour or so, because you're not going to remember the things that you did in an hour, like an hour from now. So it's hard to remember everything you did in a day because so much of it is on autopilot. And there are definitely, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times like I will be in one place and just go on autopilot and end up in a different place.
How did I find myself here?
Yeah. and then it's kind of scary, especially if that place involves driving. But yeah, so much of our life is habits. And so again, habits are neutral. So you can just focus on your habits, change those. And even ones that don't specifically cost money can have a financial component too. So figuring out how to change habits and improve habits, that's kind of like the verbiage we want to focus on.
Yes. Utilizing this information to our benefit.
So anything else on this one?
Nothing else. I really think we're ready to talk about how do we use this knowledge to our advantage, and how can we shift habits that we want to shift and maintain habits that are benefiting us.
Absolutely. So now we get into my favorite habit writer of all of, I've read a lot about habits. I've read a lot of books about habit formation, habit psychology, all of that. And James Clear in the book Atomic Habits really has been my favorite. There's a reason why it has sold over 5 million copies. And I only know that because I'm literally reading it on the website right now. But so we're actually going to be reading that during our book club for the 45-day habit challenge. And this one is, I think, a great kind of intro to all the things he talks about. There are just so many aspects that really do relate so much to like a direct correlation to like financial components.
Yeah. James Clear has been a frequent flyer for us in these articles. We also referenced an article of his in our goal setting episode. That was it's back in the archives at this point. It's an episode within the 90s. I want to say like 97.
I think it was at the beginning of 2020. So
yes.
Of course,
goal setting for 2020.
Right.
I was all wiped out.
Oh, wow. Sorry about that.
We had the best intentions.
Yeah. Gosh. Anyways, this one is how to start new habits that actually stick. What do you think of this, James Clear? And this is actually an excerpt from the book.
Yes. So much content jam-packed, and you'll see it in our show notes how much we just wanted to highlight for you all. So many goodies, and I would absolutely direct any listener just to go and read the article because we're not going to be able to dissect every single part of this, but I think he does a really excellent job with graphs, explanations, examples of the process of building a habit and the process of reestablishing habits. I think it's a really excellent step by step, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, the first part, up in the top it says the 3 R's of habit change, but this actually doesn't cover that, but it does introduce the 4 stages of a habit. And so I specifically like this one versus the original. It's called the habit loop. The original habit loop only had 3 parts. And so Clear added a 4th. Well, he added a second part. He added one between the first and second. So now there's 4. And it makes a lot more sense when you're dealing with habit change versus just understanding habit theory. So the first one is cue. So all 4 of them are cue, craving, response, reward. The original one is just cue, response, reward. But the cue is like what I was saying in the first article. It can be that time, location, preceding event, person, whatnot. So that's the cue of that. And then the craving is it's like what you want. What craving does that cue trigger? And so for me, I see a lot of correlation between the craving and our core values. So that's one of the reasons I really love this variation of the habit loop, is because our cravings tend to be correlated to our core values or our highest values. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like when you first understand those, it's quicker to understand your habits too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how he describes that what you crave is not the habit itself, but the change in state it delivers. So meaning, and he gives these examples, you're not motivated by brushing your teeth, but rather the feeling of a clean mouth. That's the end goal. That's what the craving is for. It's not just the act. You don't want to turn on the television just for the sake of turning on the television. You do it to be entertained. So similar thing with any other habit we might identify, but I think that that's an important distinction, that it's not the act itself, it's what it's going to deliver to you.
Yeah, and it's similar to the reward. Like the craving is about wanting the reward.
Yes.
And so I think you can say, I think you can kind of sparse it out where you can figure out what's the reward I want and then connect that back to your values and insert that into craving. I think that'll be really helpful for understanding why you want that reward. Maybe not on something as simple as brushing your teeth, but when we're talking about spending habits, that can be really useful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then the next thing is response. So cue, craving, then we've got the response, which is the actual habit you perform. It's the response to the cue and the craving, and it does depend on our ability the energy and effort it takes, and our degree of motivation. So again, thinking back to that path of least resistance, sometimes these habits that we have that don't feel super beneficial to us might have to do with the level of energy, ability that it takes. So, and he uses an example later on in the article, like you could want to have a habit of every time you play basketball, you dunk. But if you can't jump and reach the basketball hoop, like you're out of luck. So when we talk about shifting some of these habits, that we also have to be realistic about ability, energy that it takes, how attainable is this? But that's what the response is, the actual action.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then we have reward, which we just said is the satisfaction of the craving. So that's a habit. And then the reason it's a loop is because if we get the reward and the reward is satisfying, then the next time the cue comes up, we repeat it. And so that's again why these are mindless and frequent, not like once a year or once a month things that you have to schedule in. These are automatic and you don't have to think about it because your brain is tired because you've used 100% of it.
Yeah, and then he utilizes this term that this becomes the cue, craving, response, reward becomes a neurological feedback loop. Once this happens enough and we correlate the reward really back to whatever that cue was, that creates that feedback loop in our brains. And so that's that river flowing through the mountains. We are then more and more likely to keep doing that thing because our brain then starts to make that connection. And we want to keep closing that loop. We want to keep engaging in that loop, closing that loop. And it's really training our brains to engage in this pattern of behavior.
Yeah. So then he gives two frameworks, which is essentially one framework, but it's called the 4 laws of behavior change. And so these are the rules for creating good habits and breaking bad ones. He says bad, but we tend to see it as just like, how do we replace a limiting habit with a, more efficient habit, or just not even better habit, but a habit that gets us to our unique goals faster. Mm-hmm. And so he says, focus on the good habit first, figure out what the bad habit is, figure out what a better habit is to replace it with, then make a plan for incorporating that habit. And so the 4 laws for the good habit, I don't want to use the words good and bad, but they're just the ones I'm automatically using.
Yeah.
So
beneficial, unbeneficial.
Yeah. So it has to be, it correlates with each part of the habit loop. So make it obvious, make the cue obvious. So you have to be that cue has to be obvious. The craving has to be attractive, which is why I think it's perfect to associate it with core values, because those are internal motivators that are far more powerful than external motivators. Make it easy. So the habit has to be easy. We have to start with easy habits. And then the reward has to be satisfying. So if it correlates to a core value, it is more naturally satisfying. If you can, none of this is 100%. This is just like frameworks that are helpful.
And sometimes I think with new habits we want to incorporate, we don't always receive the satisfaction immediately. And I think that's part of why we need to be implementing this on a regular basis. Some of the satisfaction of it comes in time as we continue to engage in this and make it a new habit, right? So exercise comes to mind. You may not experience the satisfaction of the first day of exercise. It might just be pain and turmoil. But by day 30, you might be seeing some of the satisfaction and reward, which can also then help you to keep engaging in that exercise habit.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point. So my most recent habit that I wanted to implement was to work out more. I was already working out 2 to 3 days a week. But I really, over the summer, over 8 weeks, I wanted to go 5 or 6 days a week. I just wanted to set up a time where I was going more, not sustainably. I can't sustain 5, 6 days a week, but I wanted to try it. just for a set amount of time. Because, and this is another myth, it doesn't take 21 days to form a habit. I think that is more general knowledge now than the 10% one. But I think I was telling you, now it's the reason the 21-day thing was they came up with it is because of a academic article that was from doctors who like redid people's faces. It took their patients an average of 21 days to get used to the reconstruction of their face. And so it was misconstrued over all of these years to be this habit rule. But recent studies have shown that it actually takes an average of 66 days. So, and one was as short as 18 days to build a habit. So, and science has also shown, or studies have also shown, that it's more so repetition that ingrains a habit than it is our desire to get the habit. So this is totally different from our values. It's repetition. That's how we can get to these things that we have a habit of doing, but don't particularly want to do, don't serve our habits. And so if you can do something over 66 days and maybe do it, 45 times, either 45 days in a row or 45 days over, 2 months or whatever, that's a better indicator that you will stick with it long term. And so for me, for 8 weeks, I went to the gym mostly 5 days a week. Some days were 4, but mostly 5 days a week. And now that my little challenge for myself is over, now I want to go to the gym like 5 days a week. I want to do that. My body is like, please give me rest. But I now desire that. Yeah. It became a habit where I drop Kai off, I go to the gym, I come home, shower, and start work. And I love that routine.
Well, I think that's something that I like about these laws of behavior change is that we do get to decide what they are. So we do have an incredible amount of power and influence over the establishment of new habits and the elimination of non-beneficial habits. But what James Clear is saying is we can decide what the cue is going to be. Mm-hmm. We can make the craving be attractive. We can make it easy. We can make it satisfying. And so some of this might just then intertwine with our own perspective that the reward attached to, if we're just going to keep using exercise as an example, it doesn't have to be that I see immediate changes in my body. The reward could be I have made a healthy decision for myself. I accomplished a goal today. There's the self-satisfaction in that, right? We can decide what the reward is as long as we know that it is a motivating reward for us. Whatever, we need to find something though that we can attach to it that is going to help us continue to do this thing. But yes, some of it is just repetition, just continuing to do it, but at least allow the fact that I engaged in that new habit, this thing that I'm trying to make a habit. I did it. I engaged in it. Allow that to be a self-satisfactory thing to say to you. I did it. And I'm going to do it again tomorrow.
Yes.
But I also like how he says that we can utilize this invert this, right? So where we're trying to make new habits, this is also where we can eliminate bad habits. So with the cue, it is eliminating, like not making it so obvious. It is
making
not
it invisible.
Making it attractive, not making it easy, not making it satisfying, right? Like what is the opposite of this thing? That's what we would do with each of those cue, craving, response, and rewards.
You can't always make the cue invisible. Obviously, like I can't stop leaving work, but you can work on the other things. Like you can explore your core values or explore who you are and what you want to be and develop those internal motivators that change what your cravings are. The more you learn about yourself, the more you know what you really want and what you really don't want. So some of those cravings will go away the more intentional you are about doing that. I mean, you can also take a different route home from work or leave at a different time of day or, a number of things. So there are ways to shake up even these quote unquote laws of habit change. But I love how it's first you figure out what your habits are, and second, like, you figure out, once you've decided on a habit you want to change, first figure out what's the closest thing to that you can replace it with. Because was it with you that I was talking about leaving the hole in the... Oh, yes. I think it was in our YouTube video where it's like, if you dig a hole out and you just leave the hole, it's going to fill back up.
With something. Yeah.
With rain or other dirt or something, But say you dig a hole and you put a bowl in there, then that hole is going to, be there. It might, the bowl might, fill up with some sand or something, but the hole in the dirt will still be there because you've replaced the air, the gap with something. And so it's kind of the same with habit improving, is that you have to if you want to take something out, you have to first figure out what you're going to replace it with so that you can have that on deck. And so we figure out what that equal but different habit is going to be. We figure out how we make that attractive and satisfying. And then we think about, okay, so now how do I make the old habit unattractive and less visible and stuff? So I love that.
Mm-hmm. There's some creativity
to take
and problem solving and understanding of self, because how I might make something obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying might be different from how you do it, Jen. Even if the goal habit is similar, what is going to seem rewarding and satisfying to each of us might be different. So yeah, there's definitely a personalization, individualization to this, creativity, problem solving, and we love that. Mm-hmm. And of course, we can learn from one another in this community of how did you implement new habits? How did you eliminate other habits? Sometimes it does take community to really understand, how can I implement on this tool I've been given?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to just be for spending habits. Mm-hmm. Like we said at the top of the episode, this is obviously, for everything. Like most recently, I was using it for exercise. But I mean, this can be for doing a side hustle, or for, maybe less like actions that can cost money, like perusing a store whenever like an online store, whenever you get bored. So think of the actions that can cost you money or make you money. And this can be relevant for changing those habits as well.
Yeah. Yeah. As we talk about spending habits and areas where we can cut, I know we've talked about this before, but just, simple tip. I find that I used to just shop the whole grocery store. Like I just go up and down aisles. And then I realized I don't need to go up and down every aisle. If I shop the perimeter, that's that making the queue invisible. I don't need the stuff in the middle of the grocery store. So how about I just not go there? And then I'm not buying the things that are there.
Yep, absolutely. But you know what I never want to make invisible?
Ooh, this is a habit that is good and life-giving.
I love the cue that precedes this.
And the reward of the Bill of the Week.
Right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the Bill of the Week.
So this is my Bill of the Week. It's been stressing me out all week. Is that I recently moved out of a home that's 2-bed, 2-bath. 1,200 square feet, and I hired a cleaner because the owner of the house would be moving back in. I had only lived there for 8 months. The house, mind you, the house had also been cleaned professionally in September and December. When I got the invoice from this lady, she claimed to have cleaned for 17 and a half hours, and I owed her over $500. She said she didn't take a lunch break, and I quote, and not a single potty break. So I'm not quite sure what to do about it, because the previous cleaner took 4 hours to do the same job. And this lady also claimed to have taken out every single light bulb and cleaned each light bulb. So if you all have any suggestions about how I can handle this, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Wow, this is the first advice bill we've ever gotten.
It is, but both Jen and I just like jaw dropped, especially at the light bulb part. Well, and the potty part. I can't get past that. That's on her. She chose not to take a lunch break or a potty break.
I think if you have something to compare it to, like, you should make your intentions known up front. Be like, I had this professionally cleaned in September, and she billed me for this many hours. So this is what I expect for this one. And, she was able to clean the entire house doing these. And surely you agree on what they're going to do before they do it. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you didn't need every single light bulb cleaned, and that wasn't in the description of what you'd be getting, then you can argue that you don't have to pay for that. I think it's easier because you have something to compare it to. If you don't, then you can kind of argue like, hey, this was your list of services. This is what I paid for. This seems outside of the scope of what I agreed to. Mm-hmm. That would be mine.
Yeah, I would encourage you to go back to whatever communication you did have. I recognize a lot of time with cleaning jobs, we don't have signed contracts, but if there is a text message or email exchange, just to go back and reread what was asked of her, what did she communicate she was going to do? I mean, 17 hours of cleaning is, in my estimation, really above and beyond what one time being in a home would be. So
how do you even? That's an entire day of being there.
There is something unusual happening there. So I would encourage you, utilize the communication that you already have and see where there's room for negotiation with this woman. Certainly don't have her come back again if she's charging you things you're not comfortable paying. But hopefully you can find a reasonable agreement between the two of you. I'm so sorry that this bill has been stressing you out.
I'm so sorry. But yeah, I mean, and if anybody else kind of deals with this with service providers, it can be hard to figure out the time that they actually did work. You can't kind of micromanage them, but you can ask around and see, okay, for this, and you can get different quotes from different companies and be like, okay, I have this that I need done. How many hours do you anticipate that taking? And get it from their mouths. If somebody comes to you and says, okay, for this job in this square footage, I anticipate 4 to 5 hours, and then they come back at you with a bill for 17, like that's insane. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, we don't just get to go into people's homes, do what we want, and then expect to be paid for it if that wasn't what was agreed upon. So it's a matter of what was communicated from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you have a bill question or you want to share a bill with us, then please share it and we will, we'll ask Abby it, I guess. Ask Jen and Jill. And you can submit that at frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill.
And this Bill of the Week is brought to us by Ting Mobile. If you've ever or never considered switching cell phone providers, then listen in. We have partnered with Ting Mobile to spread the good news of how easy it is to cut your phone bill in half and get a $25 credit at frugal.ting.com.
Yes, I have really been enjoying Ting. All of Ting's plans include unlimited talk and text and start at $10 per month per line. And you only pay for the data you use, which is $5 per gigabyte. That's it. Or you can get their unlimited data plan for $45 a month. I love that it's actually made me more aware of the data that I use.
Yes.
So I'm not mindlessly scrolling social media like at a red light or somewhere where I'm using data. I'm more intentional to not do that, which I actually love.
Right. So take a look at your usage. Think about where you use your phone throughout the day. And if most of those places have Wi-Fi available, then we would definitely encourage you to consider making the switch to Ting, because it could be an easy money-saving move for you. All that, and you can bring your phone and number, so you don't have to switch out those things to switch over to Ting.
Yeah, it's literally just a SIM card. So you also get access to the best nationwide coverage in America and Ting's award-winning customer service. So if your phone bill is more than $45 per line, or you're just looking for a discount cell service provider with better coverage, head to frugal.ting.com to try Ting Mobile, and you'll get a $25 credit on us. And maybe you scroll social media less. Maybe that's an added perk that I
help you change those habits. Now it's time for the lightning round.
So we are, like we said, doing a 45-day habit challenge in Club BFF starting November 1st. And so we will be opening that up if you want to join and do that with us. You're going to get our 45-day habit challenge workbook. And more than that, you're going to get the availability of like a small group accountability matching. So that is a really big incentive for joining Club BFF. But so we wanted to share the habits we are going to be working on during the 45-day habit challenge. Jill?
I read what yours is.
I know.
I don't know if it's better for me to go first or second, because mine's
still going
so
first.
low key. Flossing. I'm not going to lie. It's a habit that I really want to build and implement. I have begun. I think that the 45-day habit challenge is really going to help me stick to it. But I just recently went to get my teeth cleaned, which had not happened in 5 years, you guys. Authenticity. Jen loves vulnerability and authenticity for the lightning round, so I'm giving it to you.
Mm-hmm. Just real zingers of vulnerability.
Right, like, and kind of like disgusting vulnerability. Mm-hmm. I had not been in 5 years, and I went to a dental hygiene school, so where these young bucks are learning the trade of dental hygiene, and I went and allowed them. So it ended up being that you get a 3-hour appointment. I'm totally going off script here, but here you go. They give you a 3-hour appointment, and you get your x-rays and cleaning, and dentists are coming in and checking their work and all this. So yes, you do like sacrifice time for the very, very low rate of a dentist appointment. But she told me that my teeth were so dirty that I needed to come back again for another 3-hour appointment. So within 1 week, I sat in this girl's chair for 6 hours while she worked inside my mouth.
Y'all, she almost replaced me as the frugal friend because her and Jill got so close.
Yeah, almost. Oh, but anyhow, I think this then highlighted for me that flossing is going to be important. I mean, mind you all, there were no cavities, so I am a little bit proud of myself there, and that's probably just like DNA. I got it from my mama. But she gave me some really helpful tips, or reasons to floss. She's like, you floss the front, the back of your teeth. It's not always about just getting food out. It's also about disrupting the bacteria. And for whatever reason, that stuck with me. And I have been trying to make my apprentice dental hygiene woman proud of me. So I am trying to floss on the reg. My cue is putting the floss right next to my toothbrush. My craving is to make this woman who was in my mouth for 6 hours proud. My response is flossing, and my reward is that good, clean feeling and making this woman proud of me. And disrupting the bacteria, honest to goodness, every time. Like that replays in my head. Like I disrupted the bacteria.
That's so fun. That's
yes.
Such a fun thing.
So all my other friends who out there flossing, the good kind of flossing that leaves your teeth clean.
Yeah.
Hit me up. Let's talk about it. Let's keep motivating each other in this habit. How about you, Jen? How about your altruistic, like incredible goal?
Stop it. So my goal is to actually read the Bible more. And I mean, Jill, you are inspiring to me doing this more regularly, but I have gotten out of that habit. And I feel like it, for a lot of beneficial reasons, that if you are somebody who reads the Bible or enjoys the Bible would understand. And so I've just been kind of feeling spiritually drained over 2020 and I mean, a lot of 2021. And I think I've been trying to like muscle through my life myself. And I've always been, very encouraging to other people to let go of things and give that up. And what happens for a reason. Yet I am not great at taking my own advice. And so in order to get back to the core of like why I do what I do and who I do it for, like that is the habit that I will be working on for 45 days. And I've already started. That's what happens when you're like writing the workbook, is that you start implementing it early.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, you have to do it yourself if you're going to tell other people to do it. And so I am currently on a 3-day streak. My cue is I set my alarm at 6 a.m. and I snooze it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's classic.
But in the 5 minutes, like I figure if I'm gonna pray first. I might as well be in bed with my eyes closed,
laying prostrate.
Yeah. So that's what I do for 5 minutes, and then the snooze goes off, and then I get up, and I'll make myself some coffee and do that, and till 7, and then I'll get myself ready and Kai ready. The craving is obviously is a stronger spiritual connection, and then the reward is just having that. I think that's part of our being, is to want spiritual connection, and that is what I want.
It's beautiful, Jen. I support you and encourage you in this endeavor. I think even the practice of having an hour of stillness before, especially as a mother, before you get your child out of bed, my goodness, the mental, emotional, relational, spiritual benefits of this practice are incredible. But yeah, so often it's so hard to get. Sleep just is such a powerful desire, but yeah. Cool. Yeah. I'm excited to follow this journey for you.
Me too. Yeah. We'll see. 3 days strong.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. We love hanging out with you all. We hope that this was a helpful episode for you. If you've got habits that you're trying to build or trying to eliminate, definitely hang out with us in the Frugal Friends community on Facebook. Hit us up on Instagram. We love to hear more, learn more, problem solve together. So do that. But we also want to thank you for your kind reviews on iTunes and Stitcher, like this one. It comes from Hemniz. It happens to be 5 stars.
Hemniz.
Yeah, fantastic. I love this podcast so much. Jen and Jill have given me great ideas and tidbits to apply to my own life and situation in every episode. I look forward to new episodes every week. Ooh, Hemniz. My favorite part of that was the word tidbits. Given tidbits. Thank you.
It could be like Hermes, like that Emnez. Something fancy.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to go with that. Emnez. Thank you.
We also want to thank all of you who share these episodes on social media. We're so appreciative for you spreading the word so that we can spread the message of conscious consumerism and improving habits with more people. And so when you share the latest episode and tag us on Facebook or Instagram, we're going to add you to our monthly drawing, where for every 5 tags and reviews we get each month, we give away a copy of the Frugal Friends workbook, which is no longer available for purchase. So yeah, that's just a little incentive.
An exclusive reward.
Yeah.
So keep leaving us reviews on iTunes or Stitcher and send the screenshot to frugalfriendspodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to also tag us on social. Feel free to make that one a habit every week after you listen. Just share it on social media. It'll enter you for this reward. You'll also have the reward of our gratitude and just giving back.
Absolutely. With that, we will see you next week.
Bye.
Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani.
So is podcasting a habit for us? Like we do it weekly. Is it a habit? We do it more than weekly. Well, we put out an episode weekly. I don't know. It starts to get so into the weeds, like, because then what? Work is a habit. I work every day.
I don't believe podcasting is a habit for us.
It's a gift.
We have to. It's a gift. We schedule it and we follow through with our schedule most of the time, unless we're sick.
It's a goal. It's an endeavor.
Yeah, you did not want to hear me record this episode a week and a half ago.
It's a passion
It would have not
project.
been pleasant to your ears.
Oh, you were sick. How are you feeling now?
Great. I feel great. Back to normal, taking my immune boosters, and so that I don't get sick between now and Tuesday when I fly out.
Oh, yes. Gotta get there. Gotta get with those FinCon peeps.
Home stretch. Yes. My money nerd. Yeah, that will have already happened by the time this comes out.
So how was it?
So if you want to, I just got my FinCon sweatshirt in the mail. It doesn't come from FinCon, but it says party now, work never. And I got it to wear at FinCon. So if you would like to see it, DM us and I will show you. I'll find a picture of me wearing it at FinCon and I'll send it to you. And hopefully it'll be like candid where somebody's looking at me weird and I'm partying.
You got it in the mail today. You're so proud of it. The thing that makes me laugh most about it, it's a funny sweatshirt, but it's also so incongruent with who you are. You do like to party. But
I do love to party.
But you party responsible in a planned manner and you work always.
Work always.
So it's
party
actually
in short scheduled bursts once a year.
Party later, work always is actually a little bit more what life is like for you.
But one of the girls at my gym, she saw me after not having seen me since we went out, and she playfully mocked me by dancing. And I was like, yes, this is how I want to be known.
Yes.
Like, this is how, when you see me, I want you to think of that.
Wait, because of the time you and I went dancing?
Yes.
Yes. That's 100% how they know me. And I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's all they know. So
that one night, Jen and I just let the Frugal Friends let loose.
Let our frugal freak flags friends fly.
You're just trying to find all the alliteration there. That was not on video, and it will never be.
It'll never be.